It's an episode. I'm having an episode. Have we been recording?
We are now.
Okay.
Welcome to another, actually an evening episode of Coffee Hang.
Always an evening episode.
It's an evening episode of Coffee Hang, as you can tell by your windows in the back and my windows up back here. It's a different time, right, Frank?
We cheers?
Well, I thought we did, but let's do it again. I always love the cheersing. Ting,
Ting.
cling. Frank, hold on.
What?
Try that again, bud.
Mornin Buzz.
Okay, hold on. We'll get this yet. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
I'm trying to hide my prop, but we'll get that.
Obviously, evening time. Other things happen in the evening.
That's right. A whole day has happened. With lots of
Whole days happen. So we are sort of like those morning hosts when they've been up all night and they do the morning show.
That's right. I don't know how those guys in the morning in the radio shows, how they have so much energy. It's like it's got to be the Morning Buzz. It has to be.
It must be the Mornin Buzz, and so I got some news behind it. That's a whole other thing that we'll talk about some other day. Possibly, we might have some morning show hosts on Coffee Hang.
Okay, all right. I love that. Stay tuned for that. That's a sneak peek. That's a sneak peek of some information coming on the pipes, eh, Frank?
Slightly coming out of a little bit of a wish on my part, so it's a sneak peek that.
All right, fingers crossed. So today on the show, on the hang, we have Mike Borkosky. Mike Borkosky, I don't know, man. We'll let him speak for himself, but he's just another one of those heavyweights, but a gem of a dude. And, we've been really good friends for some time, and we played together in different stuff. But this cat, let me tell you what he's done. He's a producer. He's an engineer. He's a musician, and he's one of those cats that plays everything. In fact, I came in to do some drum tracks with him, as you know, for one of our projects. And he was just tearing down a drum kit. I'm like, oh, who'd you have in here? He goes, oh, no, I was just playing drum tracks for this thing I was doing. It's like he's just one of those guys that literally goes into the live room and he's the first person to play himself down. He's such a humble cat, almost to the negative. It's like, are you kidding me? You're amazing. And he just keeps like, I suck at that. In fact, he even wrote on his bio, he goes, plays multiple instruments, a hack at several of them. That's the kind of guy we're dealing with here. Singer, songwriter, indie recording artist. He is a producer and engineer at the Back Room Recording Studios in what he wrote as unfashionable Mimico. There's other words in there I'll leave out for now. But anyway, spent many years as a higher. What's that?
Mimico is just a stop on the GO train to me.
That's right. Yeah, I've spent many nights there.
Oh, leaving Mimico now.
Next stop, Mimico. Leaving Mimico. He has spent many years as a hired gun on tours with Alana Miles, Andy Curran, Sass Jordan, Lee Aaron, etc. He's a lead singer and guitarist for the cover band that I've actually played with quite a few times called the Test Icicles. And I've told you about them lots, Frank, right? The trio, they're just one kick-ass trio. And that's Mike Borkosky.
Sure.
I think you get him in here.
I don't know. He sounds like a good Irishman with that last name.
He drinks like one. So
okay, well,
let's bring him in. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Borkosky.
Coming at you. See how he comes in. Oh,
there he is. Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
There.
Question is, do I want to?
Well, that's another. We'll see after the next 4.5 hour interview. We'll see.
That's great.
Oh my
It's
God.
a short one today, Mike.
What?
It's a short one today. Only 4.5 hours. So, Mr. Borkosky, where's your cup, bud?
Should I have a coffee mug? I'm just drinking water.
Well, if you got like a whiskey jar or something, I don't know what you.
Oh, I can
Oh.
pretend.
There we go.
Go. That's it right there, bud. Little cheers action.
Cheers. Yeah, it's still the sludge and dredge from my morning coffee, so it's delicious.
Which was like 45 minutes ago.
That's right.
No, hey man, I'm a changed individual, Ed.
Mr. Mike Borkosky, this is Mr. Frank Corin. You
Mike,
guys, I don't know if you have heard of each other, but I mean, you guys should know each other.
I've heard of you, but I've never met you. So I may have seen you play with one of those artists that we introduced you with. I don't know, way back when. I'm an old guy, so you probably played then.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a vintage instrument myself, so it's quite possible we've crossed paths somewhere. But pleasure to meet
And
you.
honestly, if it was pre-2003, I might not remember. Just saying.
Yeah, if it was me yesterday, I will remember.
Awesome stuff.
So how's it going, buddy?
Oh, it's going great, man. I was just gonna say, like, congrats on you guys launching this business, and I'm a big fan.
Thanks, man. That's awesome.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Ed's been feeding me some samples as we go, and I've got a couple favorites. And those 3 you gave me a little while ago, we got to talk about that at some point too.
Yeah, and those were the samples for the new roast.
Espresso roast. Hey,
Yeah.
some more. Hey, look, we got all the secrets
The
revealing.
lighter, hey, or the lighter roast you were looking at.
Oh, I think there was 3 that we're choosing between. That's the ones you're talking
Yes.
about, right? The espresso. Yeah. Yeah, we're excited to hear your opinion because neither one of us have an espresso machine. I mean, we know we know what coffee we like or don't like, but you're not going to make those beans in, say a pour over or a drip or French press or, you know what I mean? They're kind of, you're trying to blend them and mix them for that process, right? The extraction.
I've got some. I documented it with a few photos, and I've got some. I've got a few I got to send to you. So you can either like cut them into your video or whatever. But I did grab some shots, even of like, oh, here's how the pour looks, and I had to fool around with like the grind and tamping because they all respond differently, right? So it was a fun little project. I'm just bored enough lately that it seemed like a great idea to spend 3 hours investigating this.
That's amazing.
I had a friend of mine. He had on an old machine. He's got an old machine where he's like tamps it down. It's like 20-year-old or 30-year-old machine, and he's got a pure-old brand automatic everything espresso machine. So he rated them for both machines as well. So it'll be interesting to see and we've got a few other people that have been trying it. So, and again, I don't have an espresso machine, so it's interesting to find out which one will be the winner. Yeah. And then we'll have to go buy a machine and test them for ourselves.
Well, yeah, or Michael and we'll bombard Mike here on his place here and go to.
That's right. Yeah.
Use his machine.
Yeah. when we can all visit each other again, I'd be happy to sit you fellas down. And that's one of the funnest things about having good gear at home is like when you have company over and it's like, oh, would you like a coffee? And we're like, yeah, sure, man. And I'm like, what would you like? And then I'm like, come here, have a look. And, oh man, like the machine and the grinder and stuff, and just I love the whole process of it because mine is not. You got to get everything just right, your tamp and your grind and all those elements, and when you get it right, it's nirvana, and when you don't, it's like shit, got to start again. I'll throw them out if they're not good. I'll actually throw them out. I'm that much that I'll dump it down the drain if it doesn't come out right.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah.
It's like music. Too many times. Too many people release the first thing that they brew, and they probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
They should practice a few more French presses in that before they start serving that.
Right.
A lot of my music on the drain, actually. Now that you mention it.
Well, I remember coming back from like a Doogie's. I think we played once, and it's Doogie's, right?
That's where we used to play years ago when you would sub in, and it's Royal Electric. And then
Royal Electric. I think those are the only 2 places I played with you in your hometown there, and we'd go to your house between setting up and I think a corporate gig or something like that. But we go back to your place, and I remember the first time you're like, "Oh, we'll go back and have a coffee," and I'm like, "Yeah, sure, right on, sure, make a coffee, make a, French press, whatever." Like I don't know, maybe you're gonna pre-put the brew on. We get there, like there's this machine in the kitchen, and like it's a process. I loved it. I'd already loved coffee prior to that, but that experience really made me want to go buy one myself. And then we talked a bit about, the different kind of machines and stuff like that. And you really gotta love it to get into that kind of world, really.
Well, it's a deep dive, like just learning about machines and all the terminology and all the features and, figuring out what you want to spend and what you're going to get for what you want to spend. And, like I go a little bit crazy. I'm a little bit obsessive with researching stuff like that. Much like buying a guitar or buying studio or whatever. So, and I just drive anybody around me crazy with my obsession about it. So yeah, that machine that, you've experienced is like, that's my fourth, probably over about a 20-year journey of, buying a cheaper one and trying to get those results. And then, there was one, I think the one was a DeLonghi or something. And I actually just blew up the pump, just trying to get it to do what I wanted it to do. It was never great. And finally just he blew it up. Yeah. And a couple more. And then, okay, I'm going to get serious. Like, okay, entry level barista. And then the one I was a little more than I wanted to spend, but it was, knowing what it's worth and knowing what I was looking for. It was probably the only time I've ever scored like a great deal on a Kijiji.
Yeah.
Whereas like the ad was vague and it's like blah blah blah, and I'm like, picture was really crappy, but I'm like, I think that looks like something really good, and I pounced, man. It was great.
So what do you think you got to look for in a machine if nobody knows anything about it? Like, I mean, if you don't know anything about it, you're probably better off buying like one of the automated ones, right? Like if you don't know anything about it, because what I love about your story and where you've come from is you said, I blew the pump up trying to get it to do what I wanted it to do. So you already know what you want to do. You know what you are looking for a machine to do for you. Some people just buying espresso machines now won't have a clue. So what do you think you'd look for to buy a machine?
Yeah, well, I guess the first question anybody would need to answer for themselves would be, do they want to jump into getting a grinder at the same time? And do they want a machine that's just going to like push a button and it does everything for you, or a little more old school where you've got a portafilter? And because you can always buy, fresh ground coffee. Like it's, there's so many places now in any, little neighborhood, local cafes. So it's pretty easy to get, decent ground beans. So that's the first thing, is decide if you want to plunge and you'll go for a grinder as well, because those can get expensive too.
Yeah.
And then kind of, what you're looking for, and what are you willing, what's your bar of snobbery, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, because they jump, when you get to like other features, like the prices just jump, like it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Slippery slope.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. So,
yeah, just saying it's a slippery slope when you start reaching a little higher and I want this feature, like you've been having 2 independent boilers, and then suddenly the price just goes like bang, right?
Wow, yeah. It's like a machine, right? At that point.
What do you mean?
Go ahead, Ed.
I was just saying it's like double the machine at that point.
Well, kind of, right? Like one boiler will, serve only for your group head, the main, where water comes out, and one boiler will work for like the hot water wand and the steam wand. Yeah. And, like temperature control, they have these things. It's called a PID, PID, and I forget what it stands for, but the machine I have has one, and it monitors the temperature of each boiler, because for your group head you want your water temperature to be a certain whatever, and then your other the hot water and steam, You want it to be its own temperature as well. Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the about 10 years ago or so I received from my mother-in-law. Oh, you like coffee, Frank? We got you. I open it up. Oh, it's an espresso maker, Motomaster. It's like, it's $69.99. This is gonna not.
Yeah,
I mean,
not work.
We use it, but it's no. It's like, but when I get asked about it, it's like, well, no, you can't afford the one I want. So I don't want you to spend that money on the one I want. I'll have to do that myself. You know.
Exactly.
Yeah. That should be the price of the beans you use. $69.99.
She's just like, I mean, she's a sweetheart, and she won't watch this because she's afraid of technology, so I'm safe here. But she's just, you spent $30 on that? Like, I mean, she's still thinking in terms of late 60s and 70s. What $30 is? It's like, no, this is what things cost. $18 for your coffee, right? But hers is, if it's more than $3.99 a pound, I'm not buying it.
Yeah. Car at your local, well, I was going to say A&P. That doesn't exist anymore, does it?
What is it with their metros now?
Just dated myself again. Damn it.
There you go. That'll happen more times in this little session. Don't worry.
You know what A&P?
We'll bleep those out. Beep.
Yeah.
And you know what A&P stands for?
Atlantic and Pacific, doesn't it?
And Pacific. There you go. Yeah.
Hey now.
You guys are double dating.
Guitar players.
The best meeting ever.
Yeah. Hey man, tell us about your COVID experience. Your own personal COVID experience. What happened to you? Like the rest of us, I know it's a similar tune, but
Well, hang on. Let me get my violin. I'll tell you the whole story.
I think I have one here for you.
Yeah, I mean, like any of us that are professional musicians, the immediate shock of just like all your gigs being taken away was definitely spun me for a loop, and I was talking to all my buddies, musician buddies, and it was really helpful, hearing everyone else's take, knowing that we're all going through the same thing at the same time, and just ways to kind of get over it and take yourself out of it. So fortunately, because I have this recording studio where I work out of, I've been able to stay creative and working on production projects, mixing, mastering, whatever. But even that, about maybe 4 or 6 weeks, I was really kind of spinning my wheels. I was just in here dicking around and not really getting anything done, and didn't really have much of a clear focus, right? But eventually kind of figured it out, and it's like, well, this is the new reality, so I guess I better dust myself off and get back in the saddle. But I still really miss gigs. I mean, and I'm sure you guys can relate, like it's just such an ingrained part of your your life schedule, but even I'd say your personality too, right? Like, I mean, that's a little bit of an addiction, or whatever it is. It's a little bit of like that adrenaline buzz, performing in front of people and playing music hopefully that you like, and playing with people hopefully that you like, and entertaining people hopefully that you like as well. So that's a big thing to be taken away all rather suddenly, and who knows when that's coming back. I don't think it's anytime soon, man. What do you guys think?
You're right. Well, it's 2021 or at earliest. As soon as they say sporting events, as soon as you can fill a hockey arena, we'll be good to go, because we need 500 plus people. Right? That's what we have to get the gathering that we need. Theaters, festivals. Until that happens, we're not. Because you have the recording studio, it's just recently. I mean, we don't know the air date of this episode, but you've just been allowed to open up studios again, right?
Yeah. And I mean, ours isn't necessarily like corporate or a steady stream of coming in or out. I've maybe had 1 or 2 people in a large room at a time. People I'm working with, or just a buddy stops in to visit. But if I needed to record a band or have a few people in, I guess I could, but it was never really like that in the first place.
Sure, yeah, right on. Yeah, it's a tough. I don't know. I'm thinking it's down the road, and the other thing, we miss the performance. I think part of it is we miss the bus as much as that bus ride.
Yeah, the hang.
Easy. Sometimes having watching some war movie on at maximum volume because the road noise and just the hangout and the dreariness and the crazy hours, all of that makes it worthwhile. Like when you have those moments and those times on stage. So I love being at home with my wife. I love being on the road with my boys. So
there's gonna be a moment. I think there's gonna be a moment when we start to play again, where I'm gonna look back, like in the first couple gigs, and then I'll like be playing, and I think it'll be like, oh, that's what I missed, because I know we have an idea of it, but when you're in the moment, it'll be like that's the one thing right there. Like I can't put like I missed the hang and I missed all that, but it's hard to put the word on that exact thing, and it'll be a feeling, that or the angst, that 5 minutes in the wings of the theater waiting to go on stage where you're peeking around the curtain and that feeling, that butterfly, Yeah.
It's a whole mixed bag of like what goes with that, like anything from your daily schedule, or flights to pre-show to playing the show. There's a whole bunch of things involved in that, and some of them are not all positive necessarily, but it is what you get used to, and with the positive of the show, I mean the 23 and a half hours of the day that you're just bored and killing time just for that 1.5 hours of a show.
Yeah,
that's what you're there for, and that spike, that adrenaline rush, that's what it's all about. That's what we're.
We said yes. We get paid for everything else. That's the free part.
Yeah. I prefer setting up and tearing down the drums.
Yeah.
My favorite part is setting up, tearing down, and hauling the drum kit.
Yeah, I know you know the hardware case.
That's what I live for.
My favorite part is when you're just starting to set up and you got the tech guys like sticking boom mics into your face and you just kind of stop and you're like, not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
I was gonna say, like, when we are able to start playing gigs again, I think the first thought I'm gonna have is like, wow, I really should have practiced more when I was
Oh, I'm scared. I think there's gonna be a lot of moments up there. We've both talked about it. We don't pick. I know some musicians have done two things, I think, in this COVID. They've just kind of taken a rest. I've sort of done it as a rest. So I've been going crazy for 25 years. I'm kind of resting for the first time in my life.
Yeah.
And other guys are diving in and just like they're practicing crazy, which is great. But I do, I will have that time again. If we're not going until 2021, we'll have time to start, the ramp up to it. But I think I did a 3-week, pause and picked up my guitar and a little loop pedal on. Whoa, everything's just a little, timing, bends not going, all little things.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
My wife
played. I've been.
Oh,
go ahead.
No, Mike, go. Sorry. This audio cuts us.
I've barely played. I've been doing, I'd say, sharpening studio skills, I guess would be how I'd put it, because I'm putting so much time in here, and just having time to explore plugins or technology things I've bought and acquired, and I never even used that plugin. I wonder what it does. Or a plugin that I've always used, and it's like, I wonder what, putting it through its paces. I wonder if I make this setting or that setting, and just kind of dicking around has been great. But yeah, very soon I'm gonna have to start picking up a guitar for
A minor.
Yeah.
So I know.
So
I know that working with you and working with other engineers, other producers, you got your bag of tricks that you like to use. Certain pieces of gear or plugins or different stuff like that. And why would you, unless you're looking for something specific, why would you use anything else? You get the job done with your tools. Have you found anything in your little discovery, in the COVID discovery, that you would now add to your bag of tricks?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
even if it's certain go-to plugins, but fooling around and trying some different settings or a different chain, the order in which you put plugins on a track, or how you're using effects, or how you're the whole thing. I'm always I've always been into like breaking down my process and trying something different. But the funny thing is, it usually ends up sounding the same anyway, because you're just going to adjust everything, turn all the knobs, and play with frequencies and compression and effects until you get the sound you want to hear in your head. Even if you're using like completely different gear, because I've laughed at myself many times doing this. Like, I have a mix template, let's say, that I use with all kinds of plugins just ready to go, and it saves I'm setting up a whole new session. And once in a while I'll be like, you know what, I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to build a whole new session. I'm going to try this plugin on the kick drum, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And then in the end, it's like, it just sounds exactly the same as if I used my other stuff.
It took you twice as long.
You start developing, you start getting.
Exactly.
What's that, Frank? Sorry, you got.
It's a sound. It's a certain tone. Everybody, like when I hear you play drums, Ed, like, it doesn't matter what show it is. That's Ed behind the kit. There's a certain sound that you pull out of the drum kit,
right?
As a musician, and guitar players over time start having that if they're using good gear. Anyways, at least they get decent sound, and we start just that as the go-to. And you're right. I've been messing around. I bought just in January a Boss MS3 just to go geek guitar stuff, because I've never had a little digital. Never used digital. Just always analog. Pedal boards grown, flying ones, all doing some classic album live stuff. I needed like all kinds of different sounds without a lot of pedals, and I've never dove into that. So now, but I'm like, look at all these different sounds. But as I set them, I'm just getting it to sound like what my pedal board sounds like, anyways, and nothing else in a small version of it. Right? I'm not like, oh, that's a really cool thing. I'll never use that, unless it's in a studio situation or for a particular, a song that has that sound. So I think we tend to. I have different ways of getting it now, which I find like some more efficient ways, less heavy to carry ways, and all that stuff. But yeah, it's fun. Craziness.
Hey guys, can you let me know how long we might be talking about guitar shit? Because I'll go get some food, or I'll like
drums.
Just any like if you just let me know, just roughly, like just.
Hey Ed.
That's a whole other episode.
Enough of that.
Hey Ed. 5
What?
Is that a drum stick?
You went beep. Say that again. What did you say?
I said 5 beat.
Oh.
Is that a drumstick?
5B?
No. I'll go. Is that a drumstick? I just wanted to make you feel included.
Oh, thanks, pal. Sorry. Yeah. The Zoom took the luster away from it. So sorry.
When we did
audio.
We did a show episode way back. It was episode 2 or 3 with Jeff Salem, and our friend Elton says, "Oh, Frank speaks at the 14-minute mark." It's 2 drums.
It was all drum talk, dude. So I'm just busting balls.
I'm just sitting here going, "Yeah, that was really whatever." I'll just.
I think we were pretty. Courteous with the guitar talk.
Oh,
kind of skim and
yeah. No, you guys aren't even done yet. I know you got more in you.
It's gonna weave in and out. It's not. It's.
Right.
I'm already bored with myself, so we can guitar talk.
All right, let's talk about me. What do you think about me?
Nice. Hey, and how's the coffee distribution network going for you guys?
It's crazy. That's a loaded question, huge can of worms, because like I've told you this, I think, in a personal hang, but we had always planned on launching April 2nd. I mean, way before all the COVID stuff. For the last year, we knew April 2nd was going to be our launch date, and we had a table at the Toronto Coffee and Tea Expo on May 3rd and 4th this year. So we had about a month of launching in our minds, and then we'd have this expo, right? So that didn't happen. So we said, well, do we do it anyway? And then people are like, well, it's an online store, I mean, it might be the time to do it. So we felt weird not to do it. So we just, we did it. And it went really well. And I mean, we had out of the gate, it was great. We had a couple great newspaper articles done about us, which made the sales spike again. And we gained some really good customers, clients, and they really love us. They love our brand. And of course they love coffee. I don't care what brand you have. I don't care what social media post you put on or whatever you do. If you don't got a good product, all that's for naught, right? So, yeah, so we got some really good consistent customers coming back, and we're constantly every day just trying to figure out how to break past that reef and get out to other customers outside of our own zone, So
and it's nice also seeing we've got, I think, some third time, fourth time customers that we don't know the connection to us other than saw the story or whatever it was, or saw the launch, and they're on board, and they're dedicated customers now. They're like, the summer subscribers where they just every 3 weeks their coffee has to be brought to them. So that's nice to have. Those are the people. Your mom and dad and your friends can support you for a while, but it's like a CD release. They'll buy they don't go to every show though. They can't go to every show and support you. So it's nice to see that happening. And we're just looking at press really works for us. Old school press is a huge, as much as digital is amazing, when we get some of that old style stuff going on, and that's why we were looking forward to these like expos where we go out and farmers markets and things where we can sort of, shake hands and
kiss babies. Yeah.
Kiss babies, shake hands, and sell coffee,
Yeah, and I think to some degree, even word of mouth. You say old school. I mean, that's the oldest school of all.
Yeah.
If they tell two friends and then they tell two friends and so on and so on,
Mm-hmm.
just that, personally speaking, if I'm passionate about a project and how I am about coffee, what was the espresso roast ad that you turned me on to? Was it Sting?
That's our dark roast. Sting. Yeah.
Whatever it was, and I'm gonna have to ask you about that. I was just immediately blown away, and I'm like, I need to buy this like every 3 weeks, and I'll just tell anybody about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
go ahead.
You've tried, like, I've tried all sorts of stuff out on you. I've given you some samples of other stuff as well. But I know that you've tried Sting. Have you tried the Queen Bee just at all? The medium roast?
I'm not sure. I think some of the samples you were giving me were maybe even before you had names for them. So I'm not sure exactly what I will have tried.
Yeah. Well, I'll make sure that you try it. So again, it's your like we think of it like the cup of Joe coffee, that you remember, like it's not that Sting, because dark roast people just love that dark roast thing, right? This Queen Bee is like that cup of coffee that I remember from as a kid, just being a really great cup of coffee, Yeah.
Well, I was going to say with some dark roasts, one of the three you gave me recently, one of them was darker, right? And a little bit on the maybe oilier side.
Correct.
When I first ground it to make an espresso, my machine was not happy with it. And generally, if I'm out of beans, I go to a corner store or whatever, or the grocery store, and all they have is like, okay, there's a Kicking Horse espresso or something. I find them generally a little too oily, a little too dark. Yeah. And in an espresso machine, it's like I have to back off on my grind, and the machine still like doesn't really like it too much. Like it'll either, I think it's called over extraction, where it'll come out too slow, and then if I back off the grind, it takes hours to dial that stuff in. But I generally don't like where coffee is trying too hard to be coffee, if that makes sense. Like when you have a not to diss Starbucks, but when you have a Starbucks, an Americano or whatever, I've always thought, well, this tastes like coffee that's just trying too hard to be coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So you got just like over something, but whatever it was, one of the that you gave me, probably around the same time you gave some to Anthony and a couple other buddies. That was the one that was just a classic darker espresso roast, not super dark and oily. Just it was perfect. It's great.
So our Sting is oily, like it cakes the inside of like my hopper on my grinder, and that's why we're trying out 2 different versions of espresso roast, like a darker side because of that, the old school way, like the mocha pot type thing, right? Where they can get that dark, rich flavor, a lot of creme, a lot of oils going on, but not a machine side that is going to get all gunged up, And so I'm talking to a lot of people, they prefer a lighter, not a light roast, but a lighter roasted espresso. Yeah. Because it doesn't have all the oils that mess stuff up.
Exactly. Medium dark, I would say, is like kind of the ideal. Yeah. Because if it's too dark with machines, with machines, and I backflush a lot too, but the darker oily stuff definitely not, it doesn't make my grinder happy, and it doesn't make my machine happy.
Yeah. They're great for pour overs and French presses, though. If you like that espresso flavor, you're going to get that with the Sting, which is why both Ed and I are dark roast guys. Although I've become a light roast person in the morning now with my wife, so it's I never thought I would. Well, no, because we have a really good. What's Ed doing?
What?
I saw much of that time.
I have a couple of I have an AeroPress that I keep at the studio, and I have one that is Traveler. And for something like that, a dark roast is great. Even if I find the paper filter even smooths it out. Sorry about the 3 grind experiment the 3 roast experiment that I did for you. When I was done my home experiment, I brought all those beans back to the studio, and I thought, man, am I gonna like make each one, keep them in their separate bags and make each one in my AeroPress? I'm like, that's ridiculous. So I just dumped them all in the same bag, shook it up, mixed them together, and I started using that.
There's the roast.
It's the roast. It is now because we don't know.
Yeah. Eureka!
Take you home. liberty ship pirouettes when I think that I am free. I watch my empty silhouettes who closed their eyes but still could see. No one told them many cats I was sure another me. Today I don't need a replacement. I show them what the smile on my face meant. My heart going boom, boom, boom. Hey, he said, you can keep my things, they come to take me home. Yeah, back home.
Hey, fellas.
Hey,
buddy.
second half.
Is that are we on to the beers now? Like, should I have gotten
Maybe soon.
I wasn't sure if I should, like if I should have a couple jacks here or not, because it's a nighttime hang. Usually we're doing it early in the morning, so we're doing the coffee.
Doing it early in the morning, so you're only having bourbon.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Bourbon with a little bit of Bailey's.
Let's not talk about morning drinking.
We seen Noel yesterday.
Oh yeah?
Because we did a product shoot in radio.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah, it turned out pretty cool. Yeah. Anyway, talking to him, and I said, "You got to come on. Come on to the thing." And he goes, "Oh, I'd love to. You know what time?" And I said, "Well, usually we do it at 11." I said, "But tomorrow night we're having a hang with Bork, and he's doing 8 p.m." He goes, "That's more like me. That's more like me." And I said, "Oh, okay, maybe we'll have some drinks." He goes, "Of course we'll have drinks. Why wouldn't we have drinks?"
Yeah, exactly. Well, I have a buddy on a mission, so I may have a beer or two in a couple of minutes.
Beauty. Nice.
All things, pretty much most things go on here. But Mike, I don't know you. I don't know your background because I've never done a gig with you, hung out. So
I think he's gonna touch you now.
You feeling that now? No. Anyways, am I still there? Okay, good. I am. Technology. Just your background, music. How you got into it? What sort of got you to where you are now in this studio that you're sitting there in the metropolis that is known as Mimico?
Yeah.
So.
Prestigiously unfashionable Mimico. Honestly, I kind of knew as a little kid that I wanted to play guitar. I mean, my dad kind of had an old beater acoustic and kind of taught himself a few basic chords. He used to play those old campfire tunes. I'd call them when we were kids. So I was kind of fascinated. I think when I was 7 or 8, that lasted until I was about 12, when I was kind of really getting into rock and roll, and I kind of realized I could learn stuff off the record by hearing it a lot better than I could by reading it. So that's probably the last time I read music, when I was about 12. And high school bands, bar bands, whatever. After high school, I went to music industry arts at Fanshawe College, which really wanted to know about producing engineering. My aspirations were, I don't want to be in a studio recording my band and not know why I don't like the sound, what I'm hearing. And I was always fascinated with just how records sounded, and just recognizing, the more I learn, recognizing the art of just engineering and production. So that was very awesome experience. And had a bar band do you remember the Q107 Homegrown records?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet was the first one, right? That's
going way back. so when I was in my second year of college, one of our tunes, and we were not what I would ever have considered a Q107 band at the time, but we still made on their album, and then we actually finished second place that year in the year of, and you know, we thought, oh great, we'll get signed and whatever. What's that? It was just last week, and that happened, and so then our band kind of were across the country. Those are my first real traveling experiences back in the days of like, you know, a 6-nighter in, you know, Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. Then the next week is a 6-nighter in Halifax, and the next is a 6-nighter in, you know, somewhere in New Brunswick or whatever it is. Great experiences as young kids, poor as anything. Then through a buddy who produced our band, he was a original keyboard guy from Honeymoon Suite, Ray Coburn.
Yeah.
We started, and then after a while, he was like, you know, you should be doing something better than this. So I kind of have him to thank, to kind of getting me into a higher level. He got me an audition. So when I started working with recording acts, and then I was just like on for a bunch of years on tours. And so I have, you know, my buddy Ray to thank, and curse for a lifetime of that. I don't really tour too much anymore. There's not that many touring gigs like there used to be for, you know, recording acts, and I'm certainly not, you know, getting you know, the whatever the young and up and coming talent. They're not looking for, you know, guys of our vintage as their side guys. So other than having my own cover band, which keeps me really busy these days, and then doing stuff in the studio, that's the shortened version of.
Oh, that's cool, man. Yeah, that's cool. When you were at Sancho, was Jack Richardson out there?
I was there before Jack came and taught. Yeah, it's way back.
Oh, you're giving. Now you're giving your age.
Yeah.
No, you gave it up.
Yeah.
You painted in the corner. Yeah.
I don't know the time. I just do know. I don't know if you know Johnny Rogers, who was Phil Narrow and John Rogers do the Phil and John.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I lived with John for a number of years here in Hamilton. Him and Curtis. So he has the whole Brighton Rock. You know, having worked with Richardson.
Hockey with some of those guys. Stevie, their bass player. He and I were excellent defense partners. Yeah.
So did you still play hockey?
I haven't in a long time. That was when I used to live in Toronto, and I had a couple games a week I could play, like just, you know, pick up. Mostly musician guys, and you know, like I found there was a little bit of a code with that. Like when you're playing against other musicians, it was still really competitive, really great hockey, but there was no gooning. Like it was unacceptable. Any of us falls, breaks a wrist, then we're out of commission for, you know, 6 weeks or 3.
We were chatting with Tom Lewis about that. I was on the ice when Tom got kind of knocked down and wrist went, you know. So
So when I first moved to Guelph, I a couple of bar staff buddies of mine were like, "Oh, we got a game with some of our bar staff pals and some university guys at the U of G," and I think I played games and just got hauled down and chopped and hacked, and I'm out. Yeah. Hung up the blades. Haven't played since.
Man, that same thing happened to me last year. I was playing regularly Friday. It was, a couple guys from Monster Truck were playing along, you know, and stuff like that, and it morphed into more just a shinny. And there was a guy and I'm going in the corners, and I'm a decent skater and player, and that he cross-checks me. My head goes into the boards, and I turn around. I mean, I went after the guy, and I said, "Dude, the main thing I wanted to tell you was you are 10 times a better hockey player than I am. You could have just come around, took the puck off me, and gone and did what you did. You didn't have to cross-check me to get the puck. You know, like you probably know that." So I just went, it's getting too dangerous. It's not musicians that are, you know, careful. And even like, you know, with one of the slower guys on the ice, they're like taking the puck off. Let them take the puck up the ice, you know, make a pass and stuff. So anyways, that's like, we digress to hockey again.
Well, I mean, you know, I love playing it. The funnest experience had was we had a Monday night game out at Ted Reeve Arena, and then a couple of our guys knew some of the downtown guys. I think some of the Rio Statics dudes and, you know, that crew, and they had a game on the go, and then we combined like an all-star team.
Okay, yeah.
With the greatest name ever, the Rock and Roll All-Stars. It was a great name. I can't take credit for thinking of it. But we would play like, you know, charity games, you know, either like, you know, corporations or like the you know, police department or whatever. We played, one year we played some all-stars, like some old school Ron Ellis and Brian Conacher and some old school guys that I watched as a kid. And it was incredible because these guys, you know, we all thought, these guys are in their, you know, 60s, whatever. We're, you know, we're all young, you know, we're all pretty young, and you know, we had some really good speed on our team, and we all thought like, this is gonna be no problem. And they kind of let us score a couple goals, and then like that, and then just like netted 6 goals right in a row. I know. And, Eddie Shack was the referee. It was awesome, man. And then they you know, they played some pranks, which were it's too long a story, but it was a great experience. But I was in awe of these dudes that, you know, obviously they were in it just for the entertainment, and they could tell like, these guys think they're pretty good. Yeah, let's let them get a couple goals. And then literally in the blink of an eye, it'd be like 3 passes. I don't even know how that guy was there behind me in the net. I'm like, okay. Yeah, that's why they're professional.
That's why I played with in the Hamilton one we were doing for a while. One of the guy, Adam Cook, his dad came out. And
I know Adam quite well.
Yeah, so Adam's dad it was a Detroit Red Wing camp, and then Adam was seated, and he had to get a real job, and I think he got injured in camp. So back then there was no bonuses and all that, so he had to get a real job and raise Adam. And he was on the ice after his chemo. So he was like, you know, we're like, okay, he knew all my options when I was passing the puck. So, and of course we're giving away, we're signaling where we're, you know, watching this guy play was just like being on like, you know, this guy had NHL experience, hadn't played since then. I mean, he played pickup all his life after that, but he was good enough to be called to an NHL camp. And that's how, so that fourth stringer that we laugh at when we're like watching the game, oh, come on, get this. He would, you know, just circle like Ty Domi. Like I've heard people's stories about Ty Domi on the ice. The guy can skate. You don't get in the NHL without being able to skate.
Yeah,
you know, you're just right. Yeah, 4 ones in the NHL. You know?
That's right.
They can pick apart what you think are your, you know, best laid plans. Like literally, man, it was great. Yeah,
they played against the Fleur or the Rocket Richard or Gretzky or whatever. They played against the best that have ever been. Did you ever play with Dan Aiken?
No.
Okay, because I know he was playing hockey when he had his heart attack and died. So
friends of mine were.
Okay.
Actually,
just wondered that was the scene he was playing in, so I know that he was out there when that happened. And it was a Monday night that they were doing it. So, all right, bring it up a bit,
Mike. So before we move on to something else, I wanted to touch a bit more about your music background. Like you've played, at the beginning, we you know, I read your bio out, and we talked about Atlanta Miles and Sass Jordan and Andy Curran, and but also you did something with Canadian Idol.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I would say begrudgingly at first. When it first came on television, and you know, my kids were quite young at the time, and they were you know, all about watching it, and I was like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened in the music industry. This is terrible. I don't even want you kids to watch it. Like, you know, I got off my high horse. I let the kids watch it. I'd just be like, yeah, I'll be in the kitchen when you guys watch it. So at the end of the first season, I got a phone call from a friend of mine who's a manager, and he had been hired to like be the Canadian Idol. Whoever wins, this guy's their manager for the year, and he had to put a live band together for a tour. So he called me and offered me the job to be the musical director, hire a band, you know, listen to the guy's crappy record and try to make it a good live show, figure out a few covers and whatever. And And I was like, well, you know, I don't know. This is me on the phone. I don't know. And then I said, well, what does it pay? And he said, well, how much do you want? And I said, I'm in.
that doesn't usually fit at a gig.
I was MD on maybe 2 or 3, however many there were total, 7 or 8. I was MD on 2 or 3 of them and played 1 or 2 others that I wasn't MD. I think I did 4 or 5 of the 8 years, just as far as touring. So, and it ended up being, because I could just hire, you know, great players, and most of them my friends. And, you know, we had, you know, seriously great hangs. The shows were all fun. A couple of them were, you know, like this crazy star worship. It was weird, where people, like, they're super fans of whoever the Idol kid was. The super fans, like, some of them would like wait at the airport. There'd be a little group of like 7 people, like, oh my goodness, there's what's his name, and they would like started knowing our names in the band, and I was like, oh, I don't like this part of it. It was weird.
Yeah.
But we
fan knows everything about you.
Played some huge shows and all those beautiful theaters across Canada and lots of big festivals. So you know, it was a pretty decent experience, and you know, made a good friend. A couple of those artists ended up producing albums for them after their Idol run, and when they were just like, as you know, indies, and it was way better, and made like a couple of pretty cool albums. And of course they had a little bit of chart success because they were kind of known, so it ended up working out really well.
That's awesome, man.
Cool, man.
It was okay.
Which do you remember the Idol guys that you worked with?
Brian Malcolm, the first year. Yeah. Kalen Porter, Rex Gowdy, and Melissa. Like, they were there. It was a co-tour, Rex and Melissa.
That's right.
I ended up working with Rex for probably 8 or 10 more years after that. Did an album with him here at the studio, and then there was 1 year where they put all the top 3 on tour, and that was Theo Tam's. I'm gonna feel bad for the names, and I don't. This is embarrassing. But and it was like trying to put a show together. Charlie Cooley on that tour, Stan Michek, and Rich Roxborough. It's a pretty crappy band.
No way. What a band.
Yeah, it was pretty crappy, and it was a blast. And then we tried to work out a show of like the 3 guys as one show, kind of, and okay, they'll do a duet here, or all 3 of them here, and so we always made something good out of it. And can't complain if you're, you know, on a tour bus and staying in hotels and playing great venues that are full and having fun with your pals. It was actually, but you'll notice I didn't put it in my bio. I'm always like, oh, Canadian. I'm always a little bit.
That's okay. Hey, we've all done.
I think it's a great, because as a side guy, we're side guys. That's an elite gig to have. I mean, that's the one thing you do. You do so much. You produce, you engineer, you side guy, you also singer, songwriter. You're like, you know, and you got to do a lot of different stuff in this industry to make a living, right? And I mean, to wear that badge of MD for a real produced type show. Yeah. That's a great trophy.
They were great experiences, and you know, I learned a lot, like things that are valuable to me now. You know, running my own band, a cover band, but in corporate world or dealing with production companies or all that stuff, I always paid attention to like our monitor tech, like what's that frequency every time there's a chirp, whatever. Pay attention to that kind of stuff, and you know, logistics, stage plots, all that kind of stuff. Learning from my tour manager or, you know, front of house techs, monitor techs, all that stuff is so valuable to me now. And that's not just from Idol touring, that because I was MD with some of the other artists I work with too, but always paying attention to that stuff has paid off huge dividends now at this point. So it worked out great.
Awesome. What's going on now musically for you? Like, I mean, you talked about you're producing some stuff. What do you got going on?
Yeah, a couple artists, 2 or 3. It's funny because I sometimes forget. Like, I'm usually doing multiple things at once. You know, years ago, you'd have maybe a full album project for somebody, 10 or 12 songs, and you're just engrossed in that for a number of months.
Yeah.
Whereas these days people are doing maybe a little EP or one song at a time or whatever it is. And sometimes it's just mixing. Someone sends me files, I mix it, send it back to them. Some people have never even met them. It's all file exchange. Here's the mix. Send me your comments.
And is that word of mouth? Would those people come and find you via word of mouth, or somebody like?
Sometimes, yeah, or through, I heard something you did by so and so, and whatever it is. So it's, my point being is that I'm usually juggling a whole lot of things at once, and quite often I actually have to look in my file folders like, oh yeah, I'm working on this right now, and this right now, and this right now. But a couple of things that I don't know if you mentioned them earlier in my bio, a couple artists that I've been working with, producing and or mixing. I've got some singles coming out. One of them is like a young woman singer named Sophie Van Dale. But
can you repeat
a little bit electronic?
Can you repeat your name? You just cut out. Go ahead. I'll go.
Oh.
1 second, my connection is unstable.
All right, there we go.
And then there's this country band called Tattoos and Whiskey that a buddy of mine, David Rose, plays in, and he and I have been pals for years. So mixing, co-producing some stuff for them.
What's that vibe like? What's the?
Like,
to me, it sounds like a newer country rock. Yeah.
Yeah, not newer. Like they're not young kids, so it's kind of like more seated in a little more classic, and it's country rock, like not country, and it's not modern stadium country, which I have particular distaste for.
I agree.
But it's legit good. Yeah.
The snap track, right?
Snap track.
So they're really good. Female singer, and she's got a definite like smoky whiskey kind of voice, but this really lovely emotional delivery, like cool. Is awesome. So the songs are always good. So that's on the go. Mixing like a compilation EP for another guy, like 5 different artists, which is challenging because they're like all completely different, but the EP kind of wants it to have a similar thread through it. Mm-hmm. So there's that on the go. And I've had one of my own personal pet projects on the go for about 1.5 years. My love of progressive rock from the 70s as a young musician, working with a collaborator, our good buddy Dusty Chesterfield. We're both prog guys, and he sent me a riff he had quite a long time ago with no intentions whatsoever. And once I started figuring out like how to count it, because like it's one of those, you never plays the same thing once, like every bar is just everything's different. I started having ideas on writing other sections to it, and started having lyric ideas. So as it grew, our concept is basically side one of an album. We want to have one contiguous, I guess you'd say, a concept piece. I use that reluctantly, but a thread of a story or a subject, and putting everything I've ever known musically into it, styles and influences and time signatures, and really it's taken a long time. It's challenging stuff. So I hope to one day get that finished while I'm still on the planet.
It's incredible. It's incredible, and I've heard it in different parts.
Yeah.
Over the time that you've been working on it, from before you had Mike come in on drums, and then like after, and then after Dusty has done some work on it, you've done some work on it, and then you were in more of a stripped down mode now, like getting back to what you're the idea that you had. It's exciting for me to hear this transition through the period, because I'm sitting back complete. I got no involvement with it. So, what I mean? I can just be a listener.
What were your 70s prog? I mean, I was a big Rush, Yes, progger.
Yeah.
As a kid in the late 70s.
Rush and Max Webster were probably the first ones for me, being like a Canadian kid, right? Love Max Webster.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I saw them a bunch of times too. Like they played high school in like Welland, or the next town over from where I grew up. I was probably 15 or 16 seeing them.
Where'd you grow up, Mike?
In Pelham. Ontario.
Yeah.
Hello. Did you ever see any of the New Year's shows at Maple Leaf Gardens?
I never.
The Rush, FM, Max Webster Rush.
I saw Rush on FM at the Gardens, but I saw more concerts in Buffalo than I did in Toronto, because where I lived in the peninsula, it's easier to go to Buffalo back in the days when you could cross the border. Period. Let alone the restrictions they've had in the last few years. But I saw more concerts in Buffalo than I did in Toronto. But yeah, Rush was what got me into it. And I remember listening to, it was probably Chum FM, when they were a really cool station back in those days. And I remember them saying that they were going to play something from Yes coming up. And I'm like, well, I know Yes is a big influence for Rush, but I didn't know literally anything about this. And they played Yours Is No Disgrace. And about a week later, I got the cassette, the Yes album. That was the first Yes album I ever got. Yeah. And my mind was destroyed.
Good record, yeah.
Deep dive on Yes. Deep dive. And I would throw Genesis in there. Mostly the Peter Gabriel era, but I like a lot of albums after that. King Crimson, ELP, like as far as the prog stuff, all the Brits.
That's cool. When you mention Genesis, I always when I play even whether it's the Phil or the Peter Gabriel Genesis of the 70s, I say listen to the way they write, and that pedaled bass on the one with the chord changes, and then listen to particularly Phil Collins' big hits of the 80s, and even some of Gabriel's big hits. Those chord changes are still happening over a pedaled bass all the time. So you could already hear where Phil Collins was going to make that gold magic and all that stuff.
That exact theory, when you talk about pedaling, or especially with Yes, I mean it's lead bass. The Chris Squire. I mean, I have a '67 Rickenbacker bass
nice.
In the corner here.
Bye, Ed.
Bye, Ed.
It's your turn. It's your turn to talk, gentlemen. Go.
That's right. Yeah.
I digress.
It's not for everything, but certainly it's gotten a lot of use on this prog thing, growly, bitey top end sound. But it's a lead. It's almost a contrapuntal instrument, I would say, the way Chris Squire played bass, and either pedaling, anchoring something down while everything around it is mayhem, or him being the mayhem and substituting the root notes underneath what the chords are. I mean, I can't like stress enough how much that guy in particular just shaped everything about what they did. So and I did spend a lot of time playing bass as a young guy too. So working on our prog thing, I'm trying to think of it like using those lessons of, as you say, composition, how they write, and trying to like develop a theme earlier in the piece, but then I'm going to bring it back here later and just spin it around a little bit or do something different with it, trying to incorporate all of those things that I love so much. And where the opportunity presents itself, it's like, yeah, man, bass is going to drive this like in your face and be as loud as anything in the mix, like competing with the vocal basically for supremacy, because that's how it should be. That's how the big boys did it, right? And certainly, Geddy Lee as a bass player, I'm sure he would have been great no matter what, but if it weren't for Chris Squire and John Entwistle, Jack Bruce, I don't know that would have existed. I think those guys were the first guys that really like laid that down, and that's pretty rowdy top end sound. I love it. It's so great.
Yeah, I used to love watching that. Yeah, that was a big. I was bought all my prog Yes records in like 1980 when you'd get the delete records. So you get them for like $99 at the record store. I'm like, you got my whole collection for like $20, which was a lot of money back then, though, Ed.
Ed, you can join again.
Thanks. At attention.
The beautiful thing about vinyl back in the day was just the effort required to like put that, pull that out carefully out of the sleeve and wipe it off with a dust brush and place it carefully on the turntable and the needle drop, line it all up. you're not going to just listen to 30 seconds of a song and then switch it to the next one.
Yeah.
You're kind of engaged in the whole album as an experience. It's a lot more of an active process.
Yeah.
And I really miss that.
You put it on and you get to your seat too. You want to have the seat where you either that or your cams or however you have. I had a beanbag chair with my parents and Kenwood amp, right? And you just like an old Kenwood, and you drop it in. Especially when no one was home, it was heaven. You know, it was like just.
You know, it was really weird when I got back into vinyl after years of the digital world and all that stuff. 10 years ago, right? I remember putting the first album on and went about the house and listening to it for the first song. Oh, it sounds amazing. Go about my thing. All of a sudden, the music stopped. I'm like, no.
What?
I had to go and turn a record over. Like, I'm so used to just music just playing forever,
I'll tell you a funny vinyl story is we got rid of all our vinyl at a time when we didn't think to keep it. And then our daughter was maybe 15 or 16. She got a nice turntable for Christmas. And she's playing Zeppelin 3 or something like that on there. And we're normally in the house, because my wife is a musician as well. So at home, we're not blasting music. It's like, I just don't want to hear it. I'm like, that's all we do. I don't want to hear it at home. And our daughter's like, she wants to play everything. And she's like freaking out, because we're like, turn that up. And then I realized after listening to it, I'm listening to an analog wave as opposed to digital, because I think your ears just fatigue faster.
Right. Sure.
The digital music versus vinyl. I mean, that was an anecdotal thing, but anytime she put a record, I could listen to it all day long off vinyl. Mm-hmm. But you throw on, a CD on or just some computer running it, and I'll listen to it, but after a while, my ears get tired to want to hear it, and that kind of stuff. So
Mike, going back to what you were saying about how, records were an event, you would just put it on and listen to it, right, from start to finish. I find that there's a few bands that try to do that in that digital world, like album concept records, like Coldplay, where, whether you like Coldplay or not, but just how songs, like, you could just play it and it literally leaves one song and goes right into the other. There's no dead air. It's just, I love that. Even
Tool is a good example. I'm not the fan, but I know they have rabid fans, and their albums are these long awaited things. Oh my God, they're putting a new album, and they're immersive. It's a complete experience. Like bands, that's another great example of a band that's doing that. Yeah, there are bands that are embracing that ethic, if you will. The classic, making an album. An album is a body of work. It marks where your band is at that time. Yeah. And that's kind of missing. I still listen. If I put on music, I still listen to mostly like full albums. Yeah. I rarely go through this song, that song, that song.
Yeah, but there's a record on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there was somebody who made an interesting point about that with about just the way where music's gone to, where we've gone to more EDM and all that. And there's some great, like, you go into like hip hop, you got roots and fantastic music going on there.
Of course,
but they're talking about the era of when you think of the late 60s and the 70s and into the 80s a little bit, of just the amount of big rock bands, whether it was prog rock, cock rock, whatever. It was just from Aerosmith, Zeppelin to Rush, Genesis, all that. Massive amount of it. And they're talking about that's now dropped because that's not, like, if you look at the top 100 or 200 Billboard charts in the last couple of years, there's not a rock band on there unless they've been around from 30 years ago. And it's going to be, people are calling it's going to go sort of to the smaller club scene. And that's what's happening with a lot of metals and the prog rock of that world. Sort of what happened to jazz. Jazz was, like 40s was jazz bands were the big touring acts. And then they, rock and roll came along and jazz went into the clubs and didn't have that heyday. So there's still great music out there. You just don't hear it on even,
every so often you find something or
yeah. A couple things pop up just the way like a Harry Connick Jr. popped up through jazz, or Diana Krall popped up and hit, started charting. But it's not going to be, 20 great rock bands every year have charting records in the Billboard charts. But that's just
in general terms. I was going to say in general terms, I think there was just a failure, let's say on behalf of the major record label system, just a failure of artist development, kind of coinciding with just, literally video killed the radio star. And even I remember like late 70s when I was still a prog kid, I remember first hearing like the Police and Elvis Costello and Joe Jackson, and I was nuts for that stuff. I was a huge Police fan, still am. So that's one thing. But talking about like niche markets, there are bands that we've never heard of or that aren't mainstream that could fill 2,000 venues all over the world, and they've never been on a chart. Never had a single, and they have rabid, hardcore, true fans, and I think that's enviable situation to be in. I prefer that to being some huge rock star. It's like have your cult following and have a manageable kind of career, and you're on your own artistic terms, your own business terms. A lot of these bands have their own labels or produce their own albums. Mute Math was a band I turned on to a few years ago, and I've seen them twice live. I'd never heard of them before, and I went to a show, and it was like they sold out Phoenix.
Yeah, amazing.
Like, where did it all come from, right? Incredible band, and that's just one little example of they've never had a kind of one-hit single, but just great, and they can play all over Europe, all over the U.S. I'm sure probably South America, Asia, whatever, and might not be doing the 20,000 seat stadiums, but they're probably doing 1,000 to 3,000 a night in a theater or opening for whoever. And I think far better situation than being the big rock star.
Yeah, especially the big rock star today. The big rock star today is not what the big rock star of the 70s.
No.
Yeah, that's right.
Whole different.
The big rock star, it's all contrivance and it's artificial. It doesn't even exist. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. You can lament it. It's just the evolution of music. Whether we like it or not, as musicians, part of what's happened. And I'm glad I'm on this side of 50, the other side of 50, dealing with it, as opposed to trying to be 20 and going. Or maybe it would be great if I was 20 and I had ideas to get into it.
Sure, like us older folks, we to experience, even if it was the middle or the tail end of that that classic era of the album, we got to experience that. And then, like you, as a professional and especially as a producer, I have to constantly be updating and learning. If I have a client that wants, they wanted to like so and so, and I'm just like, I don't even know who that is. I have to learn to listen to whoever, whether I like it or not, just to kind of figure out what my client wants. Okay, I can. I get it. The instrumentation or how it sounds, how it's mixed. It's kind of like this. So, it's constantly having to. And I love the challenge. Whether I like the music, the genre or not, I love the challenge of trying to figure out. Okay, well, how am I going to do this and do it? Or do it convincingly, and you don't want to sound like a copy of everything else, because by the time your thing comes out, that trend is already dead. These days things last about seconds, so I'm always like, well, okay, you could do something exactly like that, but maybe put your own stamp on it, because that's already passé.
It's for the new artists, really, especially with the short term, whether you want to call it short term memory or whatever it is right now, or the lack of attention, is you need to have a completely different sound that hits, and makes it big, and then has everybody follow you for the next, like the Snap track, that's when that hit across all genres. Country music got swamped into it with everybody else, and you can't tell the tracks apart. Whether when you hear the intro, it's like, I don't even know what station this would be. iPad.
I've probably mixed 15 songs in the last year that all have snaps in them, and I'm like, I'm done. You know what snaps is? Snaps is like slap bass from the 80s. Like,
right.
That's what it is. It's the modern. what's in that, Ed?
Zap. So, what do you got going on there tonight, buddy?
Well,
Yeah,
I'm finishing a mix for that country band, Tattoos.
Okay.
So I'm just about done. And I have other things to do that I should be doing. I keep revisiting that little prog thing we were talking about, my big, long project. The huge challenge of all the challenges is like transitions, right? Because I've been kind of working on it in separate bits, and I know they are going to be threaded together somehow, and that's pretty tricky.
It's not like putting 2-inch tape together back in the old days.
No, I wish it was.
I know that.
I used to know how to edit on a tape machine back in the day. Yeah, it's like, okay, well, this one ends in this certain way, and then, okay, there's going to be some little sound effects or some kind of thing that's then going to fade into this or that. There's so many, too many options, and part of it is knowing what I want to hear in my head before I just start throwing, okay, I'll do a little spacey pad thing and a whatever, you can, like, not overusing the same trick, just figuring out a way, because it naturally, certain pieces are just going to want certain sections of it are going to want to stop before the next thing starts. They can't all just like tight butt to each other or, crossfade. So that's kind of the last piece of the puzzle, is figuring out how to link it all together so that it's, drop the needle and it's side one of your album. That's kind of the, but think about 2112, as a classic, Rush example, side one, it's all one piece. There are stops and starts. It does stop for a bit, and it kind of, the next thing fades in, happens. So there are as many options, too many freaking options.
You can get waterfalls. You can tune your guitar.
Yeah,
that's
right.
I did that when I was a kid. I recorded on a little cassette, a portable battery operated cassette player I had. I recorded a little brook down at, like, where I grew up at my parents' place, and the band, this is when I was at 16 or something, 17 maybe, and our band we were playing 2112 at our like high school dance or some little thing, and at the arena in Pelham, it's like, oh, we're gonna do 2112, it's gonna be great.
Good dance.
For that section, I literally had my little cassette player hooked up to our PA, and so then that one section stops, and then I literally turn on my little cassette deck with the babbling brook, and then try to recreate retune my guitar.
We did that at the Grade 9 talent show. We had the beginning of 2112 on a tape, just recorded it, and then went into we did the overture, and then went into Hangover, and then rock and roll. So we started with overture, and the second night we discovered in my bass player's basement what welder's ice can do in boiling hot water. So we have my buddy side stage coming down from the teacher's lounge with a big, huge vat of boiling water, dropping ice in it, throwing a fan across it. We can't see anything now on stage because it's just like completely, covered us. But yeah,
it feels we should have been in the same band around that year, man. I think we would have.
We would have been doing the same. It was just much fun. I think we did a grade 11 dance, and we put some U2 songs in there, but we started with an original that was inspired a lot by, like, probably Permanent Waves, style Rush, right? So it just was not very danceable. We thought it was, but
well, no, all the kids loved it for sure.
Oh yeah, the girls just did. Anyways. What do you watch? Are you watching anything to get through this? Unless when you're taking a break. Yeah,
I tend to watch mostly comedy, just because for visual entertainment, I just like to have my I like to my brain out and just like laugh and be an idiot. I'm been watching South Park. I've been through the entire of South Park. This is probably my third or fourth time watching all of them. I can watch any episode anytime, and I always think that the guys are the most brilliant on the planet. So watching that a lot. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Schitt's Creek, and a buddy of mine turned me on to a little mini series on Crave called The Defiant Ones, and I don't know if there'll be other seasons of it, but there's 4 episodes, the one that's out, and it's like a documentary about Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre. So it starts in the present with them selling beats to Apple for $3.2 billion. And then it goes back to each of their histories independently until they kind of join forces, like around the Death Row Records or whatever it was. And it's so fascinating. I've actually watched that 2 or 3 times too.
Would you call it the Defiant Ones, Mike?
The Defiant One, and it's inspiring. I mean, both those guys are just such monsters in their own rights.
Yeah.
And you know what they've each table individually and collectively, unbelievable. They are giants, and I actually relate to Dre probably more than Jimmy Iovine on, like, you know, the musicality and engineering and production. You know, I'm not putting myself in the category, but my God, that guy was just such a monster, masterful. So it's been great, and there's so many. They drop so many little pearls of wisdom about what got them through times. You know, if you think we're going through tough times, like, I didn't grow up in like Compton in the 80s, so it got pretty good. Or you know, where Jimmy Iovine is from.
Or
so it's amazing, like,
or you know,
or Scarborough.
Right, you know, or Pelham.
Oh, hang on, I did.
Oh.
You said.
Notice I didn't say Hamilton.
Well, I survived.
You've seen what we do in the shadows, right?
Yes.
Right. So do you know about the series that's out?
Well, I've heard about the series, and I'm a little bit reluctant to watch it. But have you watched it?
It is absolutely fantastic, and the writers are 2 of the guys that play the main characters in the movie.
Yeah,
they're the writers of it, and they actually do a little cameo in one of the episodes. It is
because
brilliant.
The one main guy, I can't remember his name. It's a Maori name,
right?
And really kind of a big director now too.
Yeah.
And he's Jermaine's. Like, what got me into that movie was, like, I'm a huge Flight of the Conchords fan too, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and that other guy's in Flight of the Conchords, right?
Yeah. Jermaine McClement, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I loved about that movie was that Jermaine and Taiki, I can't remember the other guy's name.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, he played a flat meeting. That guy.
Oh yeah.
That guy, that Maori guy, he directed the episode of the
Mandalorian.
Mandalorian, right? For Disney.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy's on fire. Like, he kind of came
on fire. Yeah.
Isn't he doing the next Star Wars? I think the next Star Wars film.
Is that right?
Directing the next Star Wars film.
Yeah.
So that gives me hope.
Anyway, it's a brilliant series. Like, they did a fantastic job. It just takes the humor from the first one, and it doesn't Hollywoodify it, you know? It keeps that rawness and imperfection from the movie.
Yeah. Good. Well, maybe I'll be a fan. You know, that eases my not anxiety, but I was just like, oh no, it's not those guys. I don't want to watch it.
Yeah.
But now maybe I will. And the other thing of the movie that I love so much is Rhys Darby, the guy that played Murray in Flight of the Conchords. I love that guy so much. If you remember in the movie, he's the werewolf. And he always plays the same guy in any movie I've ever seen him in. He's always kind of the same guy. He was in Pirate Radio too. Did you ever see that movie?
I just watched it again.
Yeah,
last week. Who is he?
He's the New Zealand guy, the sort of ginger, awkward, you know.
Yeah. Oh, he's in a ton of movies. I love that guy. Yeah.
A ton of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was a great part of what we do in the shadows as well. To me, his character.
Yeah, cool.
It's only him that we just the way he So he's the same bag of tricks a lot, but
sure.
always, and he made Flight of the Conchords. I think without him, that show would not have been anywhere near as.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Manager. Oh my God, so brilliant.
It's really cool watching how, like, some guys, you know, where they come from, right? Like you might discover them halfway through their career or in their peak, and then it's like music, and then you discover a back catalog of the art that they've done, right? And it's like you see why they are the way they are today, because where they've come from.
Exactly. They come out of nowhere, so they would have had to have some journey or some pathway to get them to where they are. So, he's one of those guys. Once you kind of figure out who that guy is, it's like, oh yeah, no, now I've seen him. Oh, 5 years ago he was in this or that, and you see him pop up, you know, more and more, right?
Right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool, man.
Hey, dude, tell us, what would your isolation records be? Your Desert Island 3.
And that's a tough one.
It is.
I made a list, and it's about 12. But I could.
As a punk rocker, that's allowed.
I could distill it down to 3 because they would find different things that I love about music in their own unique ways. So, in no particular order, I would probably go with. This is an obscure one. David Sylvian, Gone to Earth. So David Sylvian was the lead singer of a late 70s, early 80s kind of an art rock band from the UK called Japan. And then when he went solo, he got a lot more experimental, like ambient music, a little bit of jazz influence. I'm not too much of a jazz guy, but still uniquely. And this album, Gone to Earth, it was a double vinyl album when it came out, which I had at the time. And the second album was all ambient and atmospheric tracks. Like you can go to sleep to it anytime or chill out. It's so stunningly beautiful. The songs on the first disc are incredible too. Some of my favorite things he's ever done. But he was collaborating with people like Robert Fripp and Bill Nelson, and had all this tie over. And okay, that guy. And that I've listened to that album since it came out in. It's okay. There's cool. Genesis, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Again, a double album. I've chosen all really long albums if they're my isolation.
Double.
Right?
Yeah.
To me, that was, as much as I love earlier things. I mean, if you're going to talk about Genesis, geekology, I'm an expert. But The Lamb just is such a journey, and some of the most incredible music they ever made. But songs, the songwriting, they were starting to distill down to shorter songs, even though the whole thing is technically a concept album. Anyway, there's that one. And because I'm, my first musical memories as a kid, being aware of rock and roll, was the Beatles. My aunt loaned me a couple of albums when I was a kid that made me really love the Beatles. I mean, I was probably 8 or 9 years old. So I've always had that British pop, classic British pop, not like pop in the modern sense. Always had a love of that music, and I could pick any Beatles album to be happy with it. But I've always thought of XTC. Are you guys into XTC?
What a fantastic band. What a fantastic.
I've always kind of thought of them as the heir apparent of that
Beatles,
that philosophy, or that genre of British pop. But as XTC's career went on, they got more and more sophisticated, and just the songwriting arrangements are so lush and sophisticated. Yet, and it's one of those things, like any new album when they were coming out back in the day, it always take about 5 listens to just really absorb everything. And then once you did, you could start hearing more and more things about it, but you just realize how the songwriting, despite more chords in any one song than a lot of people would ever learn in their whole lives, but it's perfectly logical and both the songwriting and the composition. So the album Non-Such would be the XTC album, again, because it's really long. But it's got the best of those, just like, you know, pure British pop, you know, simple yet elegant and I keep using the word sophisticated, but it's also has some of their weird, you know, this tangent, that tangent, and everything is just so masterful. And it's a wonderful sounding album as well. I think
it has.
That was Gus. I'm sorry.
No, it's as XTC in general. They'll put surprising elements without sounding contrived. So it's like, you know, do really interesting things without making it sound like we're trying to just do really interesting things. It's still very beautiful and makes sense. Everything makes sense that they do.
Into, you know, string quartets, and I think Dave Gregory, who was still in the band around this time, like wrote some of those string arrangements. I can program stuff, and I have wonderful string samples. I'm hardly an arranger, and you know, when you hear like someone that's good. One of their albums, Todd Rundgren produced, Skylarking, and I'm a huge Todd fan as well. And he wrote some string arrangements too, goddamn him, because he just does everything great. That guy is
does everything.
My heroes. Todd is God. He's really one of my heroes. Yes. But yeah, I chose Nonsuch. There's so many tangents and some, you know, soft, beautiful, orchestral, dreamy things, and some really musical things that just spin your head, and I've never grown tired of listening to that album ever since it came out.
Awesome.
So if I had to pick three, it would be those. Yeah,
they're great. And you know, you say you're picking double albums,
long double, yeah,
long albums. But it's interesting because with CDs you can put 80 minutes. Doesn't mean it's 80 minutes of good music.
Yeah,
when you could 35, 40 minutes on a regular vinyl, and it's fantastic from start to finish because because you couldn't switch to the next song. You had to, you know. So well, and there's something to be said too for, you know, whittling down a body of songs. There have been artists I've worked with when I was doing full albums or even doing EPs, like let's say 5 songs. If I'm doing 5 songs with someone, I'll be like, let me hear like maybe 7, 8, 10 of your, you know, ideas, rough demos, pick through them and distill down the ones that we think are the best, or maybe we're going to borrow the bridge from this one and pop it in this one because I'm going to make the cut, but the section is great, so let's chop it up, mix and match, and put together the best. So that's, you know, that's always an interesting process in doing a project as a producer, is sifting through someone else's songs, and you know, you don't have the same investment as the writer does, so you hear it objectively, and then you try to offer direction and input based on what it is they want to achieve, but your take on it. And if they're you know, open, because some people are very defensive about their songwriting too. I mean, I was when I was younger. I probably still, you know, unless it's Todd Rundgren, ain't no one producing. Especially when you're paying for it, you're like, I want it the way I want it. And,
yeah. Except you know, maybe Todd.
But you know, as studio musicians, as side guys, like, you got to get used to being okay with, you know, if people want to change your stuff or they want you to do something different. I mean, you got to be okay with that.
Surely, yeah.
In the studio, you can't get too close to it. You got to just be like, whatever's best for the big picture, right?
Wow. Yeah. And in those cases, you know, it is about, you know, the maturity of having, you know, an experienced musician as a hired guy playing drums or whatever instrument. Yeah. They're about, you know, after years you develop that ethic, like whatever it is that suits the song, great, that's what I'll do. And I don't need to, you know, demonstrate every lick that I know. And, you know,
that's what the fade that's what the fade out's for.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You can get what you want on the 7th out chorus. Go crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's right.
It'll be on the room floor. But
make the cut.
That's a lot more difficult as a songwriter. You know, that's, I think, a little more of a, you know, you birth this song. So when, you know, someone wants to start chopping it up, you're like, oh, well, what's wrong with it? You know, that's as a producer, you want to navigate that with, I'd say gently navigate that with, you're not telling them that their song is crappy, but like, well, what if we did this? This might be better. And usually people are open to it as long as you put in in a respectful way, I guess.
And they don't want to feel like they're losing all of the control. It's more of a collaboration, right? Yeah,
it should be completely collaborative. And I'll always tell people like, okay, I'm going to make the album or the song, whatever it is that you want. That's your your vision. I'll say anything at any time I feel like I need to say something. I will. None of it ever what you're doing is bad, and we can discuss it. And if you don't like my idea necessarily, let's talk about it. And in the end, it's kind of your choice, but I will also tell you if I think that you're wrong.
Yeah, and you
should. That's why you get paid.
I guess you could cite examples of where producers and artists have clashed, and the producer has won, and it's become the big, what. That doesn't mean you're always going to have the number one hit, but it's one of those songs that are memorable because of what was changed, not because of where the battle was. If you think of, I always like to go back to the Police as a great example of a band where when Sting writes it, it gets policified because of the two guys that he had in the band with him.
Yeah, exactly.
So he might from a rumba, but it becomes a ska punky kind of thing that becomes an amazing hit. Right?
Well, this is a weird example, but Heart of Glass by Blondie. I remember who the producer was. I just saw this on some documentary a bunch of years ago. They were like, young. The band was all like young British dudes, and around that time, like reggae and ska was kind of the in vogue thing in the arty circles of London. Clash was starting to get that kind of vibe going here and there. So they wrote Heart of Glass as like as a reggae tune, and the producer was like, well, great if you want to make another crappy British people trying to do reggae song, but he suggested that it should be, it's kind of disco in its own way. He suggested that whole approach. Band hated it. They eventually relented, and it was a number one hit. Not that happened every time, but sometimes a complete reinvention, and the band either like willingly lets go or unwillingly lets go.
Yeah.
It just depends, right?
Yeah. Right on.
You never know what you have until you try it out. I like that philosophy for doing, for just, you got to try everything, try it once and then.
And fun is experimenting, and I've learned years ago too not to be precious about anything. If it's my own, I had this really cool guitar part, and I spent 7 hours getting the sound and working on the part, getting it to do whatever job I wanted it to do, and then later on, as the song goes on, as you're mixing, especially because that's when everything goes at the forefront. It's like, what? That's just not working.
Yeah.
Gotta throw it away.
Adios.
Not be precious about it. And even that's a big lesson.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
All right. Where are we at, Ed? What's going on?
Let's see what you got going on next there, Mikey B. What's happening for you that you can see, like?
More just this. I've actually got a couple of new projects coming in. I'm just clearing up a little bit of, like I said, just some mixing, a couple of mastering things, just sort of clearing up some backlog, if you will. I have something to mix. Actually, Charlie Cooley is the, I guess you'd say, executive producer, and of course played drums on it.
Cool.
It's an artist named Michael Theodore. Do you guys know him at all?
No.
I don't either.
Toronto cat?
I've got the, I'm sorry?
Toronto cat?
I don't even know, sadly. I feel bad saying that, but I don't. I've never met the guy. Everything's recorded. I got all the files from Charlie, so I'm going to mix 3 songs for him. Another...
Where did they track, Mike?
Good question.
Does Charlie track at home? He must, eh?
No, he does. I don't think he has a setup at home. He told me what studio it was, and I couldn't tell you. Right. And then I think they did. Michael did his vocals at Dom Mancuso. Do you guys know him? Anyway, he did vocals at Dom's place. So everything sounds great, and now I'm just gotta mix it up and see kind of what I hear, and that's kind of the fun too when you haven't been involved in the recording process and your tracks. It's like, okay, well, how would I treat this, and what anything you do, effect wise or EQ wise, or how you place things and how you hear things as a mixer really shapes the end result. So that's kind of fun, is just seeing where things are going to shape up. So I've got that coming up, and then an EP with a friend of mine, a buddy from Guelph named Rich Greger, who when I first met him, he was a drummer in like a hardcore metal band, double kick everywhere. Oh my God, I spent so much time on mixing stuff with double kick, trying to get it to mix and even out. But it was a great band he was in, that I produced years ago. But he's now a little older and writing more like on acoustic guitar, a little bit of Death Cab for Cutie vibes sometimes, or a little more poppy in some ways. And he's a great songwriter, singer, really decent guitar player too. So I got a 5-song EP with him to get started, I think sometime mid next month.
Cool.
And I got to finish that prog thing. Yeah.
Hey, you got to send me a little snippet of your prog tune and let me play it at the end of the video.
Yeah, perfect.
That's cool. Just mix it in, let everyone check out, because you do some amazing work, brother. Like hats off.
I'll find a little teaser. I've got it. I mean, I haven't mixed any of it yet, but it's even like I call it the pre-mix stage, where just listening through everything and weeding some of it out. Okay, there's too much stuff here. Get rid of it. A little bit of processing. I want it to sound like I want it to sound like before I mix it.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a few things that are kind of in good shape. So but I'll send you a little snippet.
We got to have a little sample, a little taste.
Like to hear it.
A little teaser.
I'd like to hear some of that. Ed's heard some. I got to hear some now. So awesome stuff, man.
Where can
Frank,
go ahead.
Frank, since you're a Yes fan, I'll send one of the really Yesy sounding bits. That's
okay. Awesome.
Oh, there you
Very
go.
good.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I'll be happy.
Is that a Rickenbacker 330 back there that I see?
It's a 12-string. It's actually, that's Craig Martin from Classic Albums, the boss of, that's his guitar. I got back from tour and when everything shut down.
Yeah.
I still have it. It's the reissue, a newer one. I don't even know the serial number on that thing, or the make of it. I just know I don't like tuning it. Is what I don't like doing.
Laborious. It's egregious. There's the word.
It sounds fantastic when it is in tune.
Man, this is nothing like it.
What was that word?
Fantastic. Egregious.
There you go.
Egregious. Guitar players.
If I'm using it right,
that doesn't usually happen. Guitar players have big words, other than the name of the guitar that they have in their hand. Rickenbacker. That's a big word.
That's a big word. Yeah. They make great popcorn too.
That's right. There
it is. Exactly.
Yeah, buddy. Well, hey, listen. Where can people find you? If they want to check out what you're up to, or where they can listen to stuff, maybe buy some stuff.
I am not much of a social media maven. I'm sure you know that about me. I do have a SoundCloud that's like my kind of production and engineering little playlist of random this and that I've done over the years. Desperately in need of updating, but I think I maybe sent you the link, but it's
cool.
I stupidly named it like Mike B / irresponsible or something, so it's a really hard thing. So you have a link there?
Yeah.
That'd be
decent. Thank you.
Yeah, put it right here.
And then our one website that I do kind of maintain, because it's more as far as our band getting corporate gigs and whatnot, thetesticles.com.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some live audio, live video, and that's kind of our thing. Blah blah blah. And I barely do Instagram or anything else. I'm quite anti-social. In fact, that's the whole concept of the prog piece with Dusty is social media, how it's affected us as as a society in general, or as how it affects individuals. Just positive and negative. ironically, this period that we're living through, this lockdown, social media is what's kind of keeping the threads of our society together, which is very much a positive. But in general, it's a long story. I'll spare you the story.
It sure is, right?
But I'm true to my words or my artistic impulses. I barely do social media. I should do way more, but I don't.
Should you though? Like,
should I?
Do you, like, you're happy, and you know what? Like, you do what you do. Why change it? Like, what's it gonna do for you? You know?
I lived a great deal of my life before there was any social media.
Right. Yeah.
Right, Frank?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Shazam.
I'll have to say, I didn't get a cell phone until they had already mastered, where I didn't have to do any of the like go up characters and stuff like that. It was already that's how long
we were playing together when you got your first iPhone, and I think I had the iPhone 7 at that time.
I got a 3 daughter. My daughter's 3.
And he would sit, like, you know, by this time we'd already gone through a few versions of that kind of phone, right? So we're on breaks or whatever in a club, and our phone's just kind of sitting on the table like everybody's is now. But Frank is faced right in, like, because he's just learning it all at that time. Loving it. Yeah.
A million years ago at Christmas, my parents bought my sister and I our first cell phones. It was one of those like leatherette pouches with a little coily cord that came out of it that you plug in.
Motorola's, baby.
The coily cord that took your handpiece, but there was like all the technology. The guts were encased in that.
Yeah. And then the little antenna that would lift up. It was called a Motorola bag phone.
Bag phone?
Yeah.
I'll
find it. It'll be right there. Motorola bag phone.
Yeah. I've never had better reception than I had then.
Right. Yeah. But it cost you $14.99 a minute. That's the problem.
You have
sadly
500 kilobytes of data per month. All right, cool.
Yeah. Wow. Unbelievable.
So we all remember downloading a song for 10 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I remember I was a kid, maybe 8 or 9, and I went over to my cousin's place, and he was probably, 17 or so, and he worked at Radio Shack at the time. And I remember walking into his bedroom, and he had his home phone on the modem, and it was, going, and he was like that was back then, transferring data. Yeah. And he was probably transferring what we would transfer now in a text message, like, "Hey, what up?" And it takes him 14 minutes to get that.
My brother had the TRS-80, one of the first sort of Radio Shack computers you could,
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
And you would get the magazines from the stores with 4 pages of fine print, and you'd have to type it all in manually to have like a Pong type of game.
Yeah, right.
Character out, you'd have to go back and think.
That's terrible.
That's crazy.
Pretty awesome, though.
A lot of money as a computer programmer in his life, but he learned back then.
It's a great time to be alive. Great time to be alive.
Yeah,
it is. What's going to be the next? Like, look at where that's come from. Like, even computers in the 80s.
Yeah,
well, that's only 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
More computer power in the palm of our hands than the first 10 years.
Floors of computer power back then. Office, like you have the information here is 3 floors of office filing cabinets.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say
more.
I made albums on computers years ago that were not as powerful as my iPhone.
Yeah. Hilarious. Mike, Thanks for coming on to Coffee Hang, bud.
My pleasure, Ed and Frank. Thanks, guys.
A blast.
Pleasure to you, and thank you for coming on. It was an honor, and we'll talk soon.
The honor is mine, and best of luck with the bids. And
thanks, brother.
I am a happy customer.
Awesome. Let me know when you need some more. I'll come and visit. Maybe I'll just bring every roast we have, and you can just dump them all into one bag, shake it up, and go to town, pal.
That's what you want. Sure thing.
Hey, Mike Borkosky, I love you, brother. Take care.
Cheers, gents.
Cheers, man.
Great night.
Come on, ciao.
All right, brother. Take care, man. So that was Mike Borkosky. That was an awesome hang.
Awesome hang.
Cool dude. Has done a lot, seen a lot. And yeah. What do you got?
What do I got? I'm looking forward to hearing some of his prog stuff. What's going on? They've come to take me away. They've come to take me away.
It's too late. It's a night version of the coffee hang, and we're losing our mind. It's time for bed.
The prog rock moment. The spaceships are coming.
Right.
All right, buddy.
Oh. Mr. Corn, have a great night, bud. Everybody, thanks for coming out and hanging with us for Coffee Hang. And have a great week. We'll see you next week.
See you next week, folks. Thank you. Night. See you, bud.
Later, dude.
Love you.
Ciao.
Ciao. Yeah.